joined by the anthropologist Mariana Hotta and the journalist Shaista Aziz. Ladies, good to see you again. And this is an interesting one, Shaista. We're going to The Independent and their story that 50 migrants have been informed that they will be heading to Rwanda. There is a difference between being told that you're going to Rwanda and actually being put on a plane there, however.
Absolutely. So I think this is absolutely shocking and disgraceful that this government continues to believe that it can get away with sending very vulnerable people to Rwanda because it wants to, basically secure votes and headlines on, doing the right thing by immigration. So this story also, involves the fact that the Home Office's own equalities impact assessment states very clearly that the Home Office is very concerned about the potential risk specifically to migrants and refugees who are of the LGBTQI background. I think it's beyond shameful that in 2022 thinks that it can tear up all rights to refugees and thinks that it can get away with this. And as part of this story as well, the government once again is deciding to attack so-called lefty lawyers, i.e. attacking the rule of law in relation to protecting refugees and migrants. And I just think it's abhorrent. It's really quite extraordinary that they think they can get away with this. And imagine being a terrified person who's waiting to be told whether you are going to be sent to a country you know nothing about.
Sure, but Shaista, you think it is abhorrent. As you said earlier, part of the reason the government is doing this, in your words, is to secure votes. There are people out there who do not think that this is abhorrent. There are people out there who think that allowing people to come in their thousands across the channel in small boats, risking their lives, risking the lives of their children, that is abhorrent.
Well, people are not choosing to risk their lives. They are fleeing from war, from conflict. The world is in chaos. And if anybody in this country thinks that this is going to stop people from trying to save their lives, it won't.
Let's move on, Marianne, to the Sunday Express. And after a week in which we had Michael Gove touring the studios, adopting a variety of comedy accents to say there will not be an emergency budget, headline news. It does turn out we're going to get, what is an emergency budget in all but name?
Oh, well, come on now. It's not going to be an emergency budget because we're not going to call it an emergency budget and therefore it isn't one. Keep up. This is, however, Tory MPs have suggested that maybe there will be some moves made by the Chancellor, perhaps bundled together into some kind of an announcement that would help people kind of announce certain measures that will address the cost of living crisis. I think the thing that concerns, which I welcome, that has to be said, which I welcome because something has to be done. But we've gone through the spring statement, nothing happened. We're now, in the second half of May, and you kind of want the government and the Treasury to be ahead of the curve, not lagging behind, because they work out how the optics are, how it's doing on polls and popularity. This shouldn't be a political issue. This should be an issue that brings people into politics in the first place, which is helping people and being a public servant. I know that makes me sound like a raving idealist, of course. And do you know what the truth is? I always thought that Rishi Sunak, I don't share all his politics. I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, kind of agree with his approach. But to a certain greater or lesser extent, I kind of thought, well, at least his heart's in the right place, even if he comes to conclusions that I perhaps wouldn't. And the thing is, I feel like he's been proven to be so out of touch, along with the rest of the cabinet, the rest of the government. I never thought that Jacob Rees-Mogg or Boris Johnson had any clue how it was for normal people. But Rishi Sunak, I kind of thought, well, he's not a complete idiot. But the longer we have to wait, the longer this becomes media speculation rather than concrete action from the Treasury, the less faith I have in the Treasury's ability to address this crisis. And then the chap who came on representing the fish fryers, I thought he spoke absolute sense. He's saying, look, at the point that small businesses close because they're not accepting, perhaps maybe they could reduce VAT, things like that. small businesses close, there's a huge knock-on impact on customers, on supply chains,
Yeah.
and those businesses aren't going to reopen when costs stabilise because the war in Ukraine is resolved or because global supply chains become more stable. It's do it now or lose it forever.
Shaista, page 6 of the Sun. Oh, in fact, we'll pause there just for a second. Liz Truss in Berlin. Sorry to butt in, ladies, but she is the Foreign Secretary.
Ministers' meeting. We were very pleased to be joined by our friends Finland and Sweden. If they do apply to join NATO, the UK is strongly supportive of that. We're also working closely with the Ukrainians and the Poles and others to make sure that Ukraine has NATO standard defence. It's also important today that we focus on a global NATO, because as well as protecting Euro-Atlantic security, we also need to watch out for Indo-Pacific security too. Thank you.
What message are you sending to Vladimir Putin, Foreign Secretary?
Short but sweet from Liz Truss there, talking about the need for a global NATO, of course. Top of the agenda in Berlin for NATO foreign ministers is the idea, of course, Sweden, Finland, and their application to join. We will return to that later. I do just want to go to try and squeeze this story in quickly, if we can, Shaista. The story on page 6 of The Sun, because there is a very, very brave young man playing somewhere in the Championship who The Sun tells us will be coming out next week. This story, though, serves as a reminder there is one, count them, one openly gay footballer, one out gay footballer anywhere in the world, and that's in Australia. It's disgusting.
It really is disgusting. It's 2022, and this young man is extremely brave. I hope that he is doing this on his own terms, and he's not being coerced into doing this because people have found out about his sexuality. He says in this newspaper article that his family are supporting him and that he's openly proud of who he is, and so he should be. So good on him, and I do hope that this gives courage to other footballers to be able to be themselves as well, and indeed anybody else in society.
Marianne, we're just running out, so just a word from you on that. I mean, unless the laws of probability and statistics do not apply in football, there must be hundreds, thousands of other gay footballers out there, presumably just worried about what the terraces will say.
Yeah, either that or through the ranks as they're training, they realise that actually football is not a place that they could be their whole selves, that they could be safe, perhaps, and actually they go, it's not worth it, I'm going to drop out.
Yeah.
So either we're looking at people who are hiding their realities, or we're losing talent because people are scared.
Marianne?
Either way, it's terrible.
Sorry, guys. Marianne, Shaista, it's been lovely chatting to you both. I hope we do it again very, very soon. For now, though, thanks very much. And that is your lot from me for today. After the break, Sophie Ray... Oh, no, she's not up after the break. We've got more on what's been happening in Buffalo.